presents information based in part on theory and conjecture. The producer's purpose is to suggest some possible explanation, but not necessarily the only one, to the mysteries we will examine.
Thank you for coming tonight. God, I'm so glad you're all here. This is amazing. Hi, Celeste. Hello. I am. I'm just looking at Christopher and Rose, and I'm thinking, like, front row seats, I always get you front row seats. Okay, well, we have a lot to cover tonight. But before we get started, I have a little confession to make. I've actually been 50 for about 6 months. Now, but if it's good enough for Jesus Christ to celebrate his birthday, not on his actual birthday, it's good enough for me. Now, you're probably wondering what you're in for tonight. Will you be squirming in your seats in humiliation on my behalf? Or will you be transported to a state of awe and grace? Probably a little of both. And if you're going to be squirming in your seats and in a state of awe and grace, why not do it with PowerPoint slides? So you're going to be seeing PowerPoint slides for the first and last sections tonight. But for the rest of it, you guessed it, me. All me. Okay, so let's start with the intro course. Richard Slatter 101, aka the formative years, ages 0 to 18, aka a series of unfortunate humiliations. I was born November 11th, 1960, Veterans Day in Springfield, Massachusetts. Now, for those of you who weren't alive in the 60s or have just plain forgotten them, let me remind you that the post-World War II baby boom still had 4 more years to go. Kennedy had just been elected president. The Vietnam War had not yet started, at least not officially, and there was no hippies at that point, and we didn't have any computers back then, but we did have some really cool things. We had black and white television, adding machines, payphones, record players, and the ever-popular slide ruler. Now, ski boots too, but out of leather, and let me tell you, they weren't comfortable. Now, my first childhood memory, aka the first recorded humiliation, took place when I was a year old. That's a picture of me from that era. I was being fed baby food in my high chair. Yum. And I looked down, and on that tray, there's a bowl there, and I flip the bowl off the tray, it goes spinning through the air, whee, and my father picks me up into his arms, hugs me, and then he takes me upstairs really fast. He seemed angry. I was scared. I had no idea what I had done to deserve that treatment. You know, tossing that bowl was going to be fun, and my parents were going to cheer my accomplishment. You know, they had cheered my bowel movements. So why not a flying bowl? Adults can really miss the big picture. You know, momentous historical events were no doubt happening in the 1960s. For example, my sister and brother were born in the 1960s. Yay. But I have almost no memory of that in that era. You see, I had my own issues. One of the big issues of preschool was that I was lagging behind all the other children physically, mentally, and socially. This is my pediatric growth development curve. Dark black lines, 50th percentile. The average kids, red lines, those would be me. The family legend is that even at age 5, my language was so hard to understand from other people that my younger sister had to translate for me. Oh, thank you for doing that. And my parents thought there was something seriously wrong with me, and they had me evaluated by doctors. You know, this lagging behind of development would continue on for a while, for about 50 years so far. Oh. Now, the next step in all this, well, I should talk about preschool some more. Every day I got to go to something called Mount Tom Nursery School. That's my school picture. I'm the little guy behind the sign. Now, this was a very prestigious school, and my parents thought they were sending me to Paradise Island. To me, I was going to purgatory. First of all, at Mount Tom Nursery School, when we went out to play, there were dragonflies there. I mean, look at this. It's like the devil. To my mind, the entire body of this animal behind the wings, one giant stinger. And imagine being stung by a bug with a 5-inch stinger. I did. I still do. And while we're on the fear of animals, let me tell you about dogs in the 1960s. Dogs in the 1960s were not the namby-pamby, I'm obedient school trained, if I'm out to a run, I'm in a fenced-in dog park, if I'm pooping, that poop is going in a plastic bag type of dogs that we have today. No. Dogs in the 1960s were free. There were no leashes, there were no fences. The dogs ran in packs. So as I would go walking by a neighbor's house, the dog, usually an adult male German Shepherd, the popular breed of the day, would come running out. I would go running for my life, and then the stay-at-home mom would emerge onto her front doorstep and do something so not helpful. She would shout to her dog, a creature trained by, from evolution, millions of years to kill what was ever encroaching on its territory. She would shout, "Horst, come back right now." Being ignored by her dog, she would then start giving me advice. Don't worry, he won't bite. Just don't run. They can smell fear. Well, I could run, I could stand still, it didn't matter. I would still be bitten, and I was. Now, my mother would then parade me over to the dog owner's house to show them the results of their uncontrolled dog. Now, the dog owner, using what I now know to be nonverbal cues, implied that it was my fault for having been bitten. The dog, also using nonverbal cues, implied that it was proud of its accomplishment. No remorse was shown. And if dragonflies and dogs weren't bad enough, there were other children at preschool. I was small and weak for my age. Once, I was walking home from school with a girl, a neighbor. She was my age, but she was bigger than me, and she was mean. She pushed me into a tree well. That is a tree well. Why would a tree need such a thing? Now, even at age 6, I knew that if word got out that I'd been pushed by a girl, I would be humiliated. My mother, at age 25, did not seem to know this. She paraded me over to the little mean girl's apartment, and you can guess what happened next. The girl's mother, using what I now know to be nonverbal cues, implied that it was my fault for having been pushed into that tree well. The girl, also using nonverbal cues, implied that she was proud of her accomplishment. The next step in the humiliation cycle, elementary school. 1967, age 7, I start Wolf Swamp Elementary School. Neighborhood teens were being drafted to go to Vietnam. There were lots of long-haired people running around that my parents called hippies, and they were hanging out in the parks at events my parents called be-ins and love-ins. I don't remember most of that stuff. What I do remember is going through the big red doors of Wolf Swamp Elementary School. More humiliations awaited me behind those doors. I was still lagging behind developmentally. I didn't know what was going on most of the time. But I was saved by the school principal, Mrs. Gilman. She took a special interest in me and tutored me in the summertime and taught me how to read. Even at that age, I knew that this level of attention and kindness was extraordinary. She was the first of a long line of mentors. Wolf Swamp Elementary School is still there, still open for business. This is a picture off of the current web page. It looks exactly the same as it did in the 1960s. I used to walk up these steps here. The school has a motto: the strength of the wolf is the pack. The strength of the pack is the wolf. I was so not in the pack. At recess, the girls would huddle up and play hopscotch. The boys would play kickball. I was never chosen nor asked to play kickball. And for good reason, I couldn't kick the ball. So I would play in the jungle gym with a couple of other boys who were also kickball rejects. Now, The teachers were apparently unaware of the school motto. They never intervened in the humiliations of recess. The gym teacher went a step further. He deliberately worked against the school motto. He nicknamed me Petunia. Now, I'm sure that gym teacher was a product of his times. He probably had a complicated and difficult life. He had a domineering and militaristic father who abused him. He was not breastfed. He was innocently doing the very best he could. I hate him. Now, at Wolfsoft Elementary School, I wasn't just lagging behind mentally and physically, socially too. And when I was in 4th grade, I decided to take flute lessons. It never occurred to me that the flute was a girl instrument, and not a wise choice for a little boy who was small and weak and nicknamed Petunia. The next step in the humiliation cycle, middle school. Glenbrook Middle School, grades 6 through 8. We had a mock presidential election, and we got to vote for Nixon, McGovern, or Humphrey. The school, like the nation, voted for Nixon. I voted for Nixon because I liked the way he looked. I can't believe I thought that man was good looking. It doesn't get any better. But maybe it's because I couldn't see. I had always passed annual school vision exams, but in 6th grade, I was asked to read during a film strip presentation. Film strips were the multimedia PowerPoint presentations of the day. The static images would be projected onto the screen from a machine like that one, and then strange voice-over narrations would be played from a record player or a portable cassette tape recorder, and then a startling ding of a bell would signal the highly honored student in charge of the projector, never me, to advance the film 1 frame forward. I was asked to read one of those slides, couldn't make out a word of it. Next thing I knew, I got my first pair of prescription eyeglasses. The next step in the humiliation cycle, high school. 1974, age 14, I started Longmeadow High School. Nixon had resigned the presidency by that time. Apparently being voted for your looks by a middle schooler who couldn't see, couldn't quite overcome the fact that he had committed serious crimes. Now, this must have been really important to all the adults, judging from the fact that every single TV station showed Watergate hearings 24/7. For me, Watergate was an unmitigated, personal disaster. I wasn't able to do it. It was my only escape from troubles at school, watch TV. I couldn't watch my favorite shows. I Dream of Jeannie, Gilligan's Island, Hogan's Heroes. I loved those shows. Damn Watergate. Now, just as I lagged behind in preschool, elementary school, and middle school, I was still lagging behind in high school. In English class, we read a book whose theme was supposed to have been autonomy. I had absolutely no idea what that meant. I wrote a book report about it. I had absolutely no idea what it meant. I still don't know what it means. I wasn't just lagging behind in high school physically and mentally, also socially. At age 16, I got my first job washing dishes at Friendly's restaurant. The water for the dishwashing there was extremely hot, and it hurt my hands. My mother, ever my protector, gave me a pair of rubber dishwashing gloves to wear. And I showed up to work one day, and I put them on. It never occurred to me that this was not a cool thing to do. Even the adults joined in the sport of making fun of me. But junior year of high school, things started turning around. My brain caught up to that of the other kids, and I started to get good grades. This is my report card. Notice, you guys notice, all A's, except for the B in gym class. And there's that B in English class. There was that autonomy paper, but we're not talking about that tonight. Now, my grades were good enough for me to be accepted at Bowdoin College, an elite liberal arts school in Maine. So in 1978, at age 18, I received a blessing. I got to leave home. I got to leave all those kids who only knew me as small and weak behind, and I went off to college. And maybe, just maybe, there wouldn't be dragonflies, cruel children, and Nazi stormtrooper dogs in Maine. Maybe they would have an appreciation for a sensitive young man who could play the flute.